Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, as we're all aware with what just happened today, there was a bit of a competition that occurred in the gacha space. There were two different live streams that both occurred on the same exact day between, and just an hour apart, by the way, between Genshin Impacto and, of course, Wuthering Wavezo. I decided to go ahead and begin a discussion over here, and perhaps we'll find an answer to the question of which live stream, which version is actually better. It's fair to say that both live streams had some weaknesses in one way or another, as well as some good things as well. And we just want to tally up from what we're seeing across here, what was good, what was bad across both updates, and then kind of determine who's actually the winner after all of the dust has settled. Why don't we just go ahead, get it kicked off over here, start a little bit about what we're looking at with Wuthering Waves, and then move forward from that. The Wuthering Waves live stream started off with a bit of a bang, right? We got a bit of an intro to the story. We saw a recap of all the stuff that occurred, got a lot of like the plot relevance out of the way, and then proceeded to show off the brand new spanking area, things like underwater exploration, and of course, the new boss that's going to be coming out. It's going to be Primus Fenrico, and we've all seen about, you know, the evil that he's going to be involved in, but we're not necessarily sure how any of this stuff is actually happening. And then, of course, we get the news about Furlova being the featured character for the patch. One thing about both of these games is that there's only going to be one 5-star limited unit coming out. So you're gonna have Furlova over here, and then you're gonna have for Genshin Impact, well, you're gonna have a Nefa over here. This is probably like the first main comparison point that we can actually have between the two games, is that I think that Furlova, I think most people would say she probably looks a bit more interesting than a Nefa. You got over here a conductor that summons in combat. She summons an echo that she fights alongside, and then that echo can actually fight alongside your teammates as well. When it comes to like the detailed overview and all of the stuff that Kuro Games was showing in regards to this unit, it was a little bit more interesting than what we saw for Nefa over here. The VAs, or whatever, the design of this live stream decided to spend an extraordinary amount of time just talking about random shit like where parts of her body are from, which I guess might be relevant for like some people that are weird, but I would just say for the general populace, it was like a lot of like noise instead of like, you know, actually relevant stuff like regarding like her animations, her idols, or anything like that. You can just see over here how long they spend on kind of like static details, just a 2D PNG floating around, and not a lot of very relevant stuff. When it comes to like her actual kit breakdown and all of that, they introduced a brand new spanking mechanic as well in Genshin Impact, and this mechanic as a whole, lunar charged elemental reactions, just seems like it's going to be another point of like power creep where they can just design new Spiral Abyss buffs based off of that, where if it's like, hey, if the enemy is affected by lunar charged whatever, they're gonna take 500% more damage. Get ready for bosses, get ready for content that's tailored around this new debuff, and if you don't have it ready to go, then the content will probably be impossible. So yeah, I guess a Nefa is now gonna be a must-pull unit. That's what I just naturally assume every single time these devs introduce something new. To me, I think that this is just negative. We've already seen what Hoyoverse does when it comes to bullshit like Night Soul, where the current Spiral Abyss buff is if you have Night Soul damage, which is only on Nat Linney's characters, you deal 75% more damage. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same exact thing for the Nod Cry units in the future. You get a cool new coordinated attack mechanic in Wuthering Waves, and then you get power creep mechanics in Genshin Impact. No, that's what's coming with the characters. We talked about the trailer and the overall quality in Wuthering Waves. Let's go ahead and talk about the trailer in Genshin Impact. This trailer in Genshin Impact really focused a lot on the brand new area that they're coming out with. This is essentially like a new like resort where people are going to be playing like a bunch of games. You can see that it literally looks like Mario Party and like a concert built into one. Nation of War, by the way. Naturally, if you've moved on past the disappointment of the whole Nation of War environment and you're getting in, and you know, you just realize Natlan's like a really like goofy, fun, like, you know, I don't want to say like child friendly, but it literally looks like I'm at like a kid's amusement park with this, then yeah, you know, I think it definitely fits the vibe for like a celebration, but it also makes the entire patch seem incredibly filler. And by filler, I mean this is like the beach episode. And it seems like there's also a beach episode happening in ZZZ2 on the side, which maybe does fit like the vibe of summer, but it's pretty fair to say that you're not going to be taking any of the stories that are happening over here in regards to this event particularly seriously. And it is going to be the main focus of the patch, because that's literally what the version trailer looks like over, or that's literally what the version artwork is. Celebrations, so on and so forth. While the version update for here is focusing on, well, you can kind of already see here, it's focusing on story elements. It's focused more so on the story. So one patch's focus is on the celebration, having fun, like the kids games, all of that, the summer resort. The other one is about story involvement, you know, pacing, moving forward, that sort of stuff. So it depends on which vibe you're looking for. I'll leave it up to you in terms of which one's actually better. But in terms of like the character preview, the information, how that stuff was shown, I think WuWa does actually stand on top compared to whatever Genshin was doing over here, because I think there's already enough goofy stuff in the patch from the preview that we just saw. I don't know if they necessarily needed to get this much into it more and not focus as much on the actual story progression that's going to be happening over here. It is a bit of a goofy patch. Now, let's move on past all of this stuff regarding the characters and move on to, again, like story relevance. That sort of stuff that's occurring over here. One of the new features that Wuthering Waves actually announced is that they're going to have these overture quests, right? Which are essentially going to tee us up for the next thing that's happening in Wuthering Waves' story. They have a new sort of like Thrones-style UI over here, where you have like a bunch of different stats that you'll progress as you respond to different types of cards. And I think the fact that Wuthering Waves is going ahead and introducing more and more ways for people to get involved in the story, keep their interest up, and then, you know, get a bit of a teaser for what's happening in the next patch is pretty cool. And I think that those that are really interested in the lore and those that are interested in, you know, the outgoing stuff that's happening in Septimont, they're gonna like this a lot. Genshin Impact, on the other hand, well, when they get into like their new Archon quest, which, you know, they spend a lot of time on Anefa first. That's the main thing that they prioritize. As they get on into the whole, like, Archon quest, they spent all the time just kind of yapping. Yeah, this is them talking about it. It's like the screen, and then they show a 2D PNG, and then they just show the screen and start talking about it. That's how they broke down their main story quest.
Anefa will be staying in that land, so feel free to check in on her and see what sort of activities she's up to.
They just spoil what happens during the quest and then show you the screen of the description of the quest in the background. And then one still
from to that sky
of meteors coming down. I'm gonna be real here. I don't know what the fuck this was. I don't know how this was really supposed to be like that engaging for the player, to just have like a literal 2D PNG, see the rewards, and then just have VAs yapping a bunch about what's happening in the quest. How about you like show something? How about you show anything that makes sense? Or, I don't know, have like, I mean, this is a situation where having like people talking breathes life into it. Like, have something that's more interactive in the showcase. That's just my take on it. I think that Wuthering Waves, for the story elements and introducing those, I think they did a better job. Because this is kind of just, it just kind of seems really, really low effort, whatever they covered over here. And it leads me to assume that there's not going to be that much stuff actually happening in terms of the Archon quest and the main story progression, if this was the best that they could come up with for this. Now, let's move forward and talk about some of the events that are occurring in this patch. And I think this is where Wuthering Waves does fall short a little bit. They have like a bit of a preview of the new area. They start talking a lot about, you know, all the new features, the new environments, all of that. This stuff's great. But then we start getting into like a breakdown of all the new mechanics, so on and so forth. And then there's not that much after that. It's like, we just get like a preview of the new area and nothing too crazy in regards to any like exploration events, any new like map features, any like new rewards. There's not a lot of information coming out. Genshin Impact, on the other hand, it is coming out with one of the most, I guess, feature-rich updates that the game has ever had. From the perspective of, if you really like mini games and you really like doing things like popping balloons, Splatoon, shooting bubbles, and, you know, kind of like going out and, again, playing like Mario Party and a bunch of different video games, then I think you're getting a lot out of Genshin Impact over here. But one thing you gotta keep in mind when it comes to Genshin Impact and these sort of like fun, goofy events is that you actually have to play all of them to get any rewards in that patch. If you don't want to play any of these, you kind of don't have any option other than getting no primo gems this patch. You better buckle in and get ready to do these. And if you don't, well, I guess get ready to be happy with like 30 pulls instead of like the 70 or 80 that you're supposed to get this patch. I think that they always tend to go like a little bit overboard when it comes to their mini game focused updates, where it always just ends up being an overload of all of these. If you want to play Genshin Impact, there's not really anything you can do. You have to go play a bunch of other games instead to be able to get the rewards in Genshin. And I think this is just something that the player base is used to by now. But if you're somebody that left the game because of, you know, issues with the gameplay and so on and so forth, I don't think that this part of the update does anything for you. And similarly, for Wuthering Waves, I feel like it would have been nicer to have more actual features in this patch being showed off. Like, one of the biggest disappointments for me when it comes to WuWa was the fact that the underwater part that they were showing and kind of like teasing, where we saw like Rover floating around in this area and it looked like there was going to be underwater exploration, that's only going to be in the story, and it's not actually going to be like built into the overall exploration. And so I would just say, from a feature perspective, in the new area, I think Genshin wins over here. I think it does, to be honest. But it also has the downside of, if you don't want to play any of these games and like, you know, party games, this sort of stuff, and like sombrero cactuses isn't something that interests you, well, you're forced to play it anyways. And that could be a big detriment on its own. Because, well, when it comes to content and when it comes to things to do, it's better to have no content than content that you're forced to do that you don't want to do to get your rewards. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword when it comes to the Genshin ranking over here. You decide what your take is on the entire matter. And now, moving forward a little bit more, we're past like the new area, we're past all of that. Let's talk about the actual new feature updates to the game. And one of the big ones that Wuthering Waves has is both like a combination of a quality of life as well as new gear. Wuthering Waves is coming out with a new Sonata set that only requires 3 pieces. And that makes a lot of additional room for like team or for character building. And they're also coming out with a special sort of tacit field that's just gonna drop a fuck ton of this new echo, and it can be completed without using wave plates like a set number of times a day. And so it's literally streamlining and like fast forwarding the grind for every person that's going to be using this new Sonata set. Mainly it's going to be for Lova, right? And has, in a lot of ways, made the gameplay experience a lot better for players. To me, this is just an absolute win. It's a gameplay update that, of course, has added a new Sonata set to the game, which you could expect, and they've made it even easier than ever to farm this set. Genshin has nothing like that in this update. They've got nothing. Instead, they had like a pointless discussion about, hey, are these 2 regions the same place? When it's like, yeah, they have the same exact geography, except one has red lighting and the other doesn't. And they're just over here having a discussion of whether or not it's the same place. And you're just like, what am I?
Guys, the dev team just gave us 2 reference images, but I need a little help here. I'm not sure which one is Mayor Javari.
It's the same fucking photo. That's what time is being spent on in this live stream, instead of, you know, maybe diving into lunar charts a little bit more, but I guess they did an in-depth breakdown of it already. Maybe there was just nothing meaningful to actually talk about over here, and so they just felt the need to bring up some level of plot relevance. My point is that the only cool thing gameplay-wise I think they showed was that if you weren't a fan of the minigames, you'll probably be a fan of this boss, at least.
Travelers will
where
also
it's like a
come face to face
gigantic
with an
looking
ancient monster
mecha
in
thing.
5.8.
Unfortunately,
Takinawa.
I don't even know if you are actually supposed
What
to
is
fight
that?
something like
It's
this.
huge.
The
It's one
only
of Gold's
combat
rogue
that they kind of showed of it was
creations, and it's
us
capable of
running
infinite
away
growth, which basically
or
means
taking
it's
it
immortal.
down using like
Wow.
scripted
One
mechanics.
Of Gold's creations.
Like you can
and
just
out
kind of see over
control?
here, we're doing a whole
Talk
lot
about a
of
bad
nothing.
combination.
Yeah, but it's not all bad news. Seat Lolly will provide travelers with a ceremonial sword left behind by...
So even if we defeat it, won't it just come back at
And
some
this is
point?
kind of like
I mean,
how you
look at
fight it.
this-
It looks like it's just like, you know, scripted mechanics, not like an actual battle that you might have been looking forward to. And so the one cool thing for like a combat oriented, you know, like actual Genshin gameplay sort of person is this, and then you don't really even fight it in the regular way. So it just seems like a scripted encounter that you'll do, and then you'll be done with it after that. While this actual meaningful gameplay sets a standard for the future, New Sonata sets are probably going to be a lot easier to farm. And I mean, this just looks like this is just the best thing ever. Like I'm literally, I farmed one wave of enemies and I have 20 echoes. Sorry, more like 10 or it's like more like 7 to 10 that just spawned and are ready for collection. There's no WuWa player that looks at this and is like, I don't like that. Nah, this feature might be, no. Everyone's looking at this and thinking, this is fucking amazing. This is the best shit ever. That's what every WuWa player is thinking. I would say new gameplay features and then highlighted gameplay features, that's the W over here. And it easily goes to Wuthering Waves. Now, let's talk about the character banners and let's talk about, you know, what's information is being shown and how good, you know, the characters actually are. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to rewind a little bit to get to that section in Genshin because Wuthering Waves has some actual really good banners this update. Yeah, Genshin doesn't show any information at all for their banners. They literally just tell you that it's gonna be her and Sitlali, and then it's also gonna be Chaska and Mualani on the second half. And there's pretty much no information in regards to that. Wuthering Waves, on the other hand, shows you the 4-star units that are going to be coming out alongside the 4-star weapons that are going to be coming out as well. And what this does is it lets players plan appropriately in regards to which banners they might want to pull on. And this is especially relevant for Wuthering Waves because the second half banner, the 4 stars on this one are actually amazing. They're actually some of the best 4 stars in the game, both on the character banner, where you're going to have Dan, Jin, Yang Yang, and Mortifi, and then on the weapon banner, where you're going to have Variation and Overture. And so, players are able to get a lot more hyped about even the 4-star options, because they're literally the best ones that have ever come to the game, frankly, if we're being honest, and, you know, that lets them plan their pulls accordingly. Genshin Impact, on the other hand, has a lot of really good 4 stars. Genshin does come out with a lot of very powerful gacha exclusive weapons and characters. Think your Pharazons that are, you know, at S6. Think your Ga Mings. Think your Sumeru weapons, right? The ones that, like, give you ER depending on what your elemental mastery is, right? They got a lot of good weapons, but there's absolutely no information that they're showing in this live stream. And so, just at, like, a baseline, yes, I know WuWa has a lot of bad 4 stars, but when they do have the good ones, they at least tell you when they're going to be on banner during the live stream. And that, by itself, I think just puts WuWa on top when it comes to how they're displaying information about the banners. I mean, you just get more over here. You have more resources, more info to plan. You don't get shit over here. This is honestly, just show the 4 stars. Show the 4 stars on the weapon banner too. It's not that hard. Yeah, I don't think you lose anything for it. You probably just build up more hype. Or maybe the 4 stars are dog shit, and that's why they're not showing them. But yeah, I would say Genshin just takes the L here. I don't know how else you could say they don't. Now let's talk about some events. Unfortunately, I think that the events in this patch is where WuWa definitely does not perform up to the levels that it has before. Because one of the main events of this patch is like a leisure one, and it seems like you're just like literally farming with Frolova. I'm personally not very excited about this. It seems like it has like a really robust system and quite a set of rewards, so it seems like there's a lot of gameplay built in. The next event is going to be an overflowing palette one, which is, of course, right, having all this fun, converting all of the stuff into the right colors. I think a lot of people like this. It's like a very, you know, very chill sort of thing. And then the next part is big updates to the Dreaming Deep game mode, where it seems like they've reworked almost everything that's supposed to be in this game mode gameplay-wise, and have made it a lot faster, a lot simpler, and a lot more cohesive as an experience, while also releasing 2 new chapters of it. A lot of people have been putting off this game mode until some updates have been made. I'm personally actually one of them, and my perspective is that there's not a lot of actual changes coming in this patch in terms of events. Those are like the actual main 3 ones. There's some other side stuff, like a minor exploration one, but those are typically just you tab into a menu, click a button, and you're done. I think that the Dreaming Deep changes and the Dreaming Deep QOL is supposed to be like what players are supposed to spend a lot of their time on, now that they've made the gameplay experience in it a lot, hopefully, better. And so my final judgment on how good the WuWa events are is entirely dependent on how good the Dreaming Deep changes are. And if they're really polished, the gameplay feels completely different, and it's way better, then I think this patch is actually going to be a W. But we have to wait and see. And unfortunately, the fact that we have to wait and see is a bit of a dark mark on WuWa's record. Now we got to talk about Genshin and their events and all the stuff that's happening over here. It looks like, aside from all of like the mini games and the stuff like that, Genshin's going to have a skin sort of like story that's going to be occurring with like Yelan. I'm 99% sure this is mainly just going to be a shit ton of dialogue that's made to just sell the new skin. I don't actually think this is going to be a very good event. These events usually are never good, if we're frankly being honest. It's always just a bunch of like unskippable dialogue, and honestly, you could just buy the skin and not even interact with this content anyways. Maybe all of the events and stuff are like built into the mini games, but there's really not that much else in the patch. There's like a photo update where they let you take photos from more positions, and they added some musical instruments. So it's like more mini games. This is like, again, the Mario Party patch. It's just a bunch of games. And then they talked about Genius Invocation TCG and some double EXP events. This is my take on this patch for Genshin Impact. If you don't like mini games, you will hate this fucking patch. If your goal when you open up Genshin Impact is to play Genshin Impact, you're gonna hate this patch. I have hated a lot of prior Genshin Impact patches where their focus isn't on the baseline gameplay, combat events, or any of that. Their focus is on gameplay and game modes that are completely separated from the Genshin Impact play loop. And this patch just seems like you're doing anything except actually playing the game. I think that Ley Line Overflow is actually the only event in here that's related to Genshin's baseline combat. And this is a double EXP event. You even see with this commercial, or sorry, with this ending segment of the stream where they show the calendar, bro, there's nothing. There's actually nothing. Let's zoom in. What is this? Stygian Onslaught, Tracing Vanishing Trails, which is the Yelan skin story, and then the photo event, and then there's not actually a combat event in here. There's no actual Genshin Impact gameplay event in here. It's literally the Mario Party patch. And if you don't like playing Mario Party, you better learn to like it. Otherwise, you're gonna hate your life as you're farming Primogems this patch. That, to me, is what really puts this patch lower on the ranking scale. It's that there might be a lot of stuff in here, but it's extremely easy for the stuff in this patch to be stuff you don't like. But you have to play it to be able to get the rewards. And so if you have the privilege of being able to just say, fuck a patch, and then you just pay money instead to get your Primogems, great. But if you don't have that privilege and you want to keep up with the power creep and the HP inflation and every new release being more broken and overpowered than the last, and you know in Nod Cry, they're introducing a new lunar charged elemental reaction that's probably going to be broken and is going to balance the future of the content, you want as many pulls as possible, even if you're a meta player. And so it's just like, I don't really know who this patch is like made for. It's just all in kiddie games. And in Wuthering Ways, at least, right? You actually fight in Dreaming Deep. And if Dreaming Deep is a lot better, well, maybe we'll do a lot of fighting in this patch. And yes, while they do have some mini-game oriented stuff, this shit looks like baby easy, and it's all done super fast. And this, hopefully, actually is a big gameplay mode, because I know a lot of people have been putting off this shit, and it's probably going to be a lot better afterwards. And so there's at least hope over here that I'm going to have the Wuthering Ways gameplay loop. And then, naturally, right, I'm going to have a pretty damn enriching story as well, because Fenrico is a villain that we've been building up across 7 months of the game by now. And so we're finally going to reach a conclusion with him to some degree. So there's definitely a lot of story stuff for us to look into as well. I would just say, events-wise, you can't say anything except Genshin is the loser. Genshin has to be the loser when it comes to events, because there's no gameplay events in here. There's not a single one. It's just minigames. Now let's get to the last piece, and that's going to be quality of life. I've already pre-teased a little bit of WuWa's quality of life, where they went ahead and they made farming for one of the new Sonata sets an absolute breeze and zero effort. Now let's talk about some of the stuff that they've added to the game. They added, essentially, conjoined echo tuning, where you can level up the echo and then also tune it at the same time. This is something that people have been asking for a very, very long time as like a time saver, and it's now finally in the game. And so this is just one more thing on the very short list of quality of life that Kuro doesn't have to deal with anymore, and it is a godsend that they've added it to the game. Now, streamers like Fobmaster can brick their echoes twice as fast as they were before, just plus 25 banging it. So make sure you do level by 5 increments instead of all at once, because that's literally what they do in this demo over here. These guys are crazy. Don't actually do this. You will brick your account. Next couple of quality of life updates they actually do is they have management plans for locking the echoes. So they're listening to a lot of concerns, except with the number of tuners themselves, or Echo EXP. They're basically going ahead and making the farming experience for gear as seamless as they possibly can without actually increasing the amount of resources. And so that is a lot of what we're seeing in this update. A lot of direct addresses to some of the biggest concerns that players are having. And they've made one of the most tedious parts of the game, the inventory, echo management, that part. And they've given out fucking 25 presets that you can use for like a plan that you want to like auto lock or like discard pieces. I mean, at that point, it's like this is one of the most fleshed out systems we've ever seen. Straight up. Then, of course, they have this tab over here that's part of like the streamlining experience for farming new sets. And so it's just, there's a lot for players to look forward to from this quality of life side, because now it's just like, that future sets, that future characters should hypothetically be way, way, way easier to build in the future, because they're already putting in all of these new features right now. So, I mean, it's quality of life that makes players look forward to the future, and it's going to help them in the present as well. It's solid stuff. Now, let's talk about Genshin's quality of life. Cool, we can see the skills in the game. Woohoo! And it's not going to be a video file stored on your computer. It's going to be on the server. Woohoo! Then they got quest time interface optimization. They actually had different wording for this. They called it the time skip button. But for the live stream, they decided to change the wording to interface optimization. I wonder why. They went ahead and just showed off and demonstrated the one skip time feature, which is like, sure, that's great. But it's also like, it's a good feature to add. True. It's also something that I don't even know if it warrants mention, because the fact of the matter is you're not doing this very often, because that would require you to play a story quest in Genshin Impact, which you're probably not doing if you respect your time. And so you want to know what they should have put in instead? A just regular skip button, so that I would actually do these quests in the first place. However, that's probably going to happen about 5 years from now. Next, they have a harvestable tracking optimization, where they, instead of just putting in the system to make tracking less of a chore, they're going ahead and they're slightly improving it just like a little bit, which is like, I think the strategy of Hoyoverse at this point. Never meet expectations. Always fall below what the players are asking for, so that you constantly have room to keep improving. Never actually fix the issue. Fix like 10% of the issue, so that next time you run fixes, you can fix another 10% and then say that you're listening. That just seems to be what happens every single time for every feature. Otherwise, how are they revisiting the same quality of life over and over and over again? I'm pretty sure they've addressed the harvestable resources quality of life at least 3 or 4 times by now, much like how they've addressed quick equip artifacts like 3 to 4 times. That is their version of devs listened. Don't actually fix the issue, pretend you're fixing it, and then you can say that you fixed it even more when you still fix it again in the future and it still fixes nothing. That's just what the quality of life is over here. And I'm gonna be honest, you have real meaningful things in WuWa that are gonna make your gameplay experience better. I forgot they added more teams too, which is what people were asking for. We doubled, we went from 5 to 10. Huge W for Kuro Games adding that. It's just, the issue just gets fixed. You wanna know what Genshin would have done if we requested more teams? Genshin would have increased the total number of teams from 5 to 6. That would have been the Hoyoverse way. And so that they could then increase it from 6 to 8 later and then be like, look, we listened. Kuro just goes ahead and gives you 10 off the bat. They don't like fucking ration out the fucking quality of life. Hoyo's rationing quality of life fixes like they're gonna run out. Don't worry. They won't. You can fix a lot of stuff every patch. There will still be more. You won't run out of quality of life. You don't have to ration it like this, Hoyoverse. But they do it every single fucking patch. And that alone, the sheer lack of effort put into these fixes and the fact that they don't do anything at all, frankly, if we're being honest, is why Wuthering Waves is going to be on top. And so I would just say, as a whole, reviewing both of these updates, there's one deciding factor that will determine which update is better for you and which livestream is better. If you don't like playing Genshin Impact and you like playing games that aren't Genshin Impact, this Genshin Impact update was probably amazing for you. Because that's the only thing you'll be doing in this update is not actually playing Genshin. But if you do like Genshin Impact and you like the gameplay and you want more of that, this patch is dog shit. And probably, if you're watching this live stream, you'll like the baseline gameplay of Genshin. That's why you're probably there. And I would just say, as a whole, that probably means this is the worst live stream and the worst patch. Yes, WuWa does have its weaknesses. We talked a lot about them. I think we were very honest about them. But then this just patch as a whole, it doesn't even look like it's made for Genshin players. Because you're doing nothing involving actually playing the fucking game. Even against the new boss that they introduced, you're fighting it using a cutscene. You don't even fight it in the regular way. What are the actual features in this patch? I'm still wondering. Maybe it'll actually launch and blow all expectations, but I don't think it's going to do that. I would just say, as a whole, for a majority of players, I think Wuthering Waves is going to be on top. Yes, it does have its weaknesses. Yes, it's not the perfect patch. Yes, it's relying a lot on Dreaming Deep optimizations, making it a good game mode to make this a decent update. And yes, I will be revisiting this later if Dreaming Deep is bad. But I would just say as a whole, yeah, Wuthering Waves won here. If you're somebody that actually enjoys this game. But there are reasons, and there are ways that people could say the opposite. That'll be my take. That'll be my overview on the war that's occurred between these two games. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know what you all think. Peace.